Hi, welcome back to our class. And this is week 4 of this course. And we have been covering biopsychology. Last week, we have been covering some history of psychology in the week 2. And also we have covering the research methods of psychology in week 2 as well. And this week in week 4, we are going to talk about consciousness. And all the stuff we talk about today or in this week, in this video, is covered in the chapter 4 of the textbook. So if you have read the chapter 4, you can continue watching this video. And if you haven't done so, please read the chapter 4 of the textbook, and then you can watch this video. So let's start our lecture about consciousness. So before talking about today's stuff, let's have a little bit review of the last week's lecture. Specifically, we can review about the brain structure. So in the brain, so brain is a part of the neural system, and the brain is the brain is on the top of the neural system. And there are 4 lobes in the forebrain. So one is the frontal lobe. It's in the front of the head. And there's occipital lobe, which is on the back of the head. And there's a parietal lobe on the top. And there's a temporal lobe, which is near the ear. And so this kind of a structure is also related to consciousness. So let's talk about what consciousness is, and then we can go back here to talk about why this structure is related to consciousness. So what is consciousness? So when we talk about somebody is conscious, or somebody is not conscious, or somebody is unconscious, so what we are talking about. And another related word is awareness. When we talk about we are aware or somebody is aware of something and what we are talking about. So the formal definition of consciousness is that the consciousness is a mental state, is a state of mind. In that state, people are aware of a lot of stimuli. So some stimuli are from the internal, means that there's some information going on. There's something going on inside our physical body, and we are aware of those changes, or we get information from inside our body. So we are aware of the internal stimuli. And also there are a lot of things going on outside of our physical body. And so those are the external stimuli. So it's external to our body. So those external information or external stimuli are captured by our neural system, right? So last week we talked about there are different kinds of senses. Those senses get information from outside of the environment, and the neural system sends information from all kinds of organs, such as eyes and such as ears, such as skin, send those information to the brain, and the brain will process those information. So if our brain is conscious, if we are conscious, we are aware of both internal and external stimuli. So it means that we can know what happened inside and outside of our body when we are conscious. So internal stimuli include the pain inside our body, right? So we can feel the pain. If we touch something that is really sharp, we feel the pain. And there's hunger, also the internal stimuli. So we can feel when it's hungry and when it's not hungry, when it's full. And we have thoughts. So that is also internal stimuli. And also we have emotions and feelings. So we can feel sad, we can feel happy, and so forth. External stimuli include so many things, like the things that we see, the visual information, the visual sensory information, and the temperature. We can feel the temperature. And also we can feel the texture of objects with our hands and other parts of the skin. So our skin can feel the temperature of some objects. And also our skin can feel the temperature. And also our ears can hear things. Those are the auditory sensory information. And also our noses can feel the smell. And our tongues can feel the tastes. There are different kinds of tastes. There's bitterness, there's a sweetness, and other kinds of tastes. So when we are conscious, we are aware of all kinds of this internal and external stimuli. So this is what consciousness means. So just it's really close to the word awareness. So we are conscious, in other words, means that we are aware of a lot of stimuli inside and outside of our body. So sometimes we are not that conscious. We are not always conscious every day for 24 hours. We need to have sleep every day, every night. So sleep is another state of the mind, of consciousness. So what is a sleep? So in the sleep, people have the relatively low levels of physical activity and also the low levels of sensory awareness. So that kind of state is different from the state that when we are having the rest, when we are having the break, when we are wakeful. When we are awake, we are resting, or when we have a break. That is not sleep. So sleep is totally different from the wakefulness. So sleep and wakefulness are the two kinds of states about consciousness. And in the sleep, of course, we don't really move because we cannot voluntarily move our body and do a lot of things. We cannot really think because we are not really aware what's going on, and we are not really conscious when we are sleeping. So the level of physical activity is really low, and there are some like involuntary activities, because when you are asleep, some people move, turn their body on the bed, or have some other kinds of a movement. And also, more importantly, there's really low levels of sensory awareness. Almost there's no sensory information going to the brain. Brain still have the sensory awareness when people are sleeping, but the level is very low. You can understand as like the brain is not really working when people are sleeping. The brain is like, yeah, it's like off work time. It's not really working. They're not really, they're like it's outside of official working time, so they are outside of, they're not on their job, and they don't really respond to emails, something like that. So sleep is like that. So it's very special state of consciousness. So the level of consciousness of sleep is actually really low because of low levels of physical activity and the low levels of sensory awareness. So wakefulness is another state of consciousness. So on the contrary, in wakefulness, when people are awake, the sensory awareness is really high. So we can see things, we immediately know what's going on inside of this physical environment. We can see things, we can know it very quickly. We can hear things very quickly. We think, we voluntarily think. We are conscious of what we are thinking. And also we can have a lot of behaviors. So high levels of sensory awareness, high levels of thinking, and high levels of behaving. And we do things we think, and we feel things with no any problem in wakefulness. So the question that I want to talk about is like, where is consciousness located inside our brain? So why people have consciousness? Like it's like I think consciousness is very special ability for human or for the brain to have. So brain has different kinds of abilities, such as receiving the sensory information from the different parts of the body, can see things, can hear things, and also can send the order to the rest of the body so the body can move. And people also have feelings and emotions. And also consciousness is also a very important ability for the brain. And I don't think a lot of other creatures, like other insects or some animals are really primitive, you know. So some animals are so primitive. They don't have the ability to be aware, or they don't have the consciousness. Those high level animals, such as mammals, such as dogs and cats and elephants, they are very intelligent. Like the same with humans, they have the consciousness. But why these animals and humans have consciousness? Why they are conscious? Why they know what they are doing? Why they know what is going on in the environment? So that is actually a very high level ability. So consciousness is actually happen in the frontal lobe. In this part. So consciousness only happens in the frontal lobe. It means that the brain is not conscious or is not aware of what is going on in other three lobes. So here is the consciousness located. So other parts, the brain is not conscious. Remember that when there is the sensory receptors, the brain can have the consciousness. So the sensory receptors are like eyes, the ears, the sensory receptors in the skin. So the skin can feel the texture of objects and also the temperature. And the eyes have sensory receptors, so we can see the visual information. The ears have the sensory receptors, so ears can hear the auditory information. Also the same with the tongues and the nose. And inside our brain, inside our body, physical body, also there are sensory receptors so that we can feel the pain inside our bodies, such as stomach pain. So the stomach is now, when the stomach is not working well, the sensory receptors inside of the stomach can send the information of the pain to the brain. So brain is aware, is conscious of that. But you can see that inside of the brain, there are no sensory receptors. It means that the brain is not conscious of what is going on in other parts of the brain, except the frontal lobe. That is very interesting. We do not know how to process the visual information at all. We can see things, that's for sure. But we can be conscious of the visual information. We can be conscious of what we see, but we are not conscious of how we see it. how does the brain to process it? We do not know, because that process happens in the occipital lobe. We do not have the consciousness in occipital lobe. And also, not only other parts of the brain, also the other parts of the neural system, we do not have the consciousness, such as the midbrain, and also the cerebellum, and also the spinal cord. Some functions are realized in those parts. And oftentimes those parts, the functions are involuntary. For example, the heart is beating. We do not have the consciousness of that. We cannot control the speed of the heart beating. We cannot control that at all. And some parts like the secretion of some hormones, such as the secretion of growth hormones, it controls our height, controls whether we can grow higher, taller. We do not have the control, we do not have the awareness of that at all, because it is controlled in the midbrain by the hypothalamus or thalamus. So there are a lot of parts we do not have the awareness, we do not have the control. So the only part of that we can voluntarily or consciously control is the frontal lobe. And in frontal lobe, what's in frontal lobe? So there is like some higher level of cognitive functioning, such as doing math, such as logical reasoning, such as logical analysis, such as the applying the rules to do things. Like if you play a video game, you need to play a sports game, you need to apply the rule, right? So the frontal lobe is working. So we are consciously aware of it. Or the speech production. So we are knowing what we are talking about. That also happens in the frontal lobe. And also there's in frontal lobe, there's motor cortex. So motor cortex controls the movement. So we can voluntarily control our body to do all kinds of movements. That is because consciousness happens in the frontal lobe. So there is a lot of an unknown area inside our brain that we do not have the consciousness. So that is very interesting. So we feel that we can control everything, we can control ourselves totally, but in fact, we can only control part of the brain. Another part of brain is controlled by itself. The brain regulates the physical body by itself. That is, I think that is very interesting fact to know. So we can know, so the biological basis of consciousness, where is consciousness from? Consciousness is actually a very high level function for our humans, for any animals. Okay, so next topic, we can talk about sleep in detail, because sleep is like very important for our life, and also very sleep is something that you definitely need to know about. So there's a question about jet lag. So have you ever experienced jet lag? So jet lag is a phenomenon that sometimes you are in a specific location in a specific time zone. And however, you take the plane and you go to another place that is really far away from the original place. And that place is in another time zone, has a totally different time. And then you have the jet lag. Normally, you have the jet lag. So what does it feel like? You can pause the video right now and recall that memory. And So for me, I have a lot of experiences of having jet lags. It's like if you travel from one time zone to another time zone, uh, for most people, they will have jet lag. So the it's like when you want to sleep, it's not a time to sleep. So your body is used to the original time zone after you still even though you travel to a different place. So like your body cannot get used to a new time zone that quickly. So when you just travel from one place to another place with a different time zone, your body is like still used to the old time zone, cannot get used to the new time zone as that fast, like that fast. But it only lasts like a few days to adjust the physical body. So it's really interesting. It's like a inside our body there is a internal clock. It's like a biological clock inside our body. And outside we rely on the mechanical clocks, but inside the body it seems like there is internal biological clock that controls our body. So when the night is coming in the original time zone, we feel sleepy. We want to go to sleep, even though our physical body is in a new time zone. In that new time zone, it's not the night yet, for example. But our internal biological clock get used to or is used to that old time zone. So that's when jet lag is happening. So let's talk about sleep. So as I just said before, just now, inside our biological body, there is a internal rhythm. So there are internal rhythms of biological activity. It's like an internal biological clock. For example, the body temperature changes over a 24-hour period. So we can see the graph on the right. So we can see that after 12 a.m., so most of the time, most of people go to sleep. So you can see on the graph on the right, that's a sleep period. So here, so this period is a sleep. So after 12 a.m., people go to sleep, and the body temperature drops very quickly, and reach the bottom at like a 4 a.m. or 4:30. But it increases to the normal level after like 9 or 10 a.m. And it reaches the peak, the highest point, at about like 10 p.m. So when people are awake, their body temperatures are pretty high. But when people are sleeping and their body temperature is really low, and it fluctuates. There is this kind of a pattern of changes repeat every 24 hours. So there is a 24-hour period of internal rhythms for body temperature. So that's why we see in the inside of the physical body there is internal rhythm. And also true for a lot of other phenomena inside our physical body. And normally this kind of rhythm, the period of internal rhythm is 24 hours. So that kind of rhythm is called a circadian rhythm. So circadian means like 24-hour. So 24-hour rhythm is circadian rhythm. That is true for every rhythm inside our physical body. So our biological rhythm happens once every 24 hours. So that's the like a mental clock or the biological clock. And also true for awareness or for consciousness. When we are sleeping, there's a really low levels of sensory sensitivity and really low levels of physical activity. But when we are asleep, when we are awake, we gradually have really high levels of sensory sensitivity and also high levels of behaviors and thinking and all that. So that kind of rhythm also takes place over a 24-hour period. So that is also a circadian rhythm. So how does it happen? Why the neural system has that function? How the brain decides this kind of a period is just 24 hours? How does that happen? So this is realized by a part inside our brain, specifically inside of the midbrain, in the hypothalamus. So last week we talked about hypothalamus is a part that controls the endocrine system, controls the pituitary gland. And also hypothalamus has other functions such as controlling the circadian rhythm. Also hypothalamus controls the circadian rhythm. So hypothalamus is a very important part inside of a neural system. So there's a small part inside of the hypothalamus that is called the suprachiasmatic nuclei, or it's called SCN. So there, that area is a bundle of neurons. So there are a lot of neurons. They're bundled together. So it's called a nuclei. So nuclei is a group of neurons that are together. The SCN controls the circadian rhythm. So the axons of the neurons in the SCN, I'm sorry, I was wrong. So actually there are neurons in the eyes. The axons of those neurons in the eyes send the visual information to the SCN. So the SCN can get the information about how bright the environment is. So because in our eyes we can know the visual information, we can see things. Of course, we can see how bright the environment is. So in the night, the environment is really dark. We can know that through our eyes. And in the daytime, the environment is very bright. There is a lot of sunshine, there's a lot of lights going on. So our eyes can know that. So there are some of the neurons in the eyes or in the retina. Retina is a part of eye. So some neurons send the information about how bright or how dark the environment is. Send that kind of information to the SCN. So SCN can know it. Okay, the SCN is analyzing the brightness of the environment. If the environment is too dark, okay, the SCN knows that, oh, it's night. It's a time to go to sleep. The body temperature drops down. And there's low levels of physical activity, low levels of sensory awareness. And people will feel really sleepy because the brain will controls the endocrine system. So endocrine system will send the hormones to reduce the activities of the brain, reduce the brain activities. So that's when people are really sleepy and they feel they're yawning and they're like feel really sleepy because our endocrine system secrete hormones to control the brain, that brain to have a rest, to have a break. And when the environment is so bright, the SCN knows that. So the SCN decides, oh, that's not the time to go to sleep. So that's why people are really wakeful or they are not sleepy at the daytime. And even though people are really tired in the daytime, they cannot really go to sleep because the environment is too bright. The brain is keeping telling them, telling the person, oh, that's not the time to go to sleep. So that's why people are, it's easy to go to sleep at nighttime, but it's not really easy to go to sleep at the daytime. So that's why people have the 24-hour biological rhythm or have the circadian rhythm that is controlled. Actually, that is controlled by the 24-hour period of the Earth. Actually, that's how it works. Because there is daytime and night at every 24-hour period in the environment, in the physical environment on Earth. So that's why people get used to that kind of rhythm on Earth. That's why our biological bodies have the circadian rhythm of 24 hours. Okay, so yeah, so how the sleep-wake cycles are generated. So there is kind of a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is secreted by the pineal gland in the endocrine system. So the melatonin actually regulates the biological rhythms. Almost all the biological rhythms are meditated or controlled by the hormone melatonin. So the pineal gland is controlled by the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is controlled by the hypothalamus. Inside the hypothalamus, there is SCN, right? So actually, SCN controls everything, controls, creates the sleep-wake cycles inside our physical body. So our body can actually regulate the sleep because the brain controls uh, whether the physical body is sleeping or whether the physical body is awake. Sometimes the normal sleep can be disrupted. For example, there can be jet lag because people are still used to, the physical body is still used to the old original time zone. The physical body is not used to, cannot get used to the new time zone that fast. So there are a lot of symptoms such as fatigue in the daytime, such as insomnia in the night, because uh, in the old time zone, that's daytime, but in the new time zone, that is night. So that's why people have insomnia. And because there is a mismatch between the internal circadian cycle and our environment. In the new environment, the sleep-wake cycle is different from our internal circadian rhythm. So that's why people have jet lag. And another kind of a disruption of normal sleep is called a sleep debt. So in the long run, if for a very long period, that person does not get enough sleep. That's when we see that person get the sleep debt. It doesn't get enough sleep for very, very long time. The debt is accumulated. That may result in a lot of health problems. That person may get really agitated very easily, may get anxious very easily, or their attention level is very low, cannot get focused, cannot get concentrated on things that they do. So that's the consequences of sleep debt. Actually, people at different ages need a different amount of sleep. So like for adults over 18 years old, they need about like 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So we all need at least 7 hours of sleep every day, 7 to 9 hours. Specifically 7.5 hours. Yeah, 7 hours and a half. That's the amount of sleep that people normally need. But for babies, they need much more amount of sleep. They need 12 hours of sleep. So that's why you see a lot of babies, a lot of newborns. They seem to sleep almost all the time. They always sleep. It feels like that, but actually they need at least 12 hours of sleep. So the younger, the more sleep they need. And after 2 or 3 years old, those children need about 10 hours of sleep. So before 15 and after 2 or 3 years old, in this age range, those children need at least 10 hours of sleep. After like 12 or 15 and before 18 years old, they need 9 hours of sleep. So still more than the amount of sleep that the adults need. But so you can see the amount of sleep is needed less and less when we grow up. That is very interesting. So next, let's talk about why we need sleep. Why do our physical bodies need sleep? Or what are the benefits? Or what are the functions of sleep? So during the sleep, the physical body is actually doing a lot of things. So when we are awake, we are doing a lot of things consciously, but during sleep, the body is doing a lot of job. The physical body is doing a lot of job for ourselves. For example, during sleep, there is a lot of melatonin that is secreted. Melatonin regulates the circadian cycles. That's what we just talked about. Melatonin can make us feel asleep. So melatonin is important to regulate the circadian cycle so that our physical body can get used to the day and night on Earth. And also there are follicle stimulating hormone, that is FSH, and also luteinizing hormone, that is LH. So this kind of two hormones regulates the reproductive system. So FSH help the physical body to create the eggs for women and the sperms for men. So that's why people have sperms and eggs inside our body that's regenerated by this kind of hormone, FSH. So FSH is secreted a lot when we are asleep. So that's when sperms and eggs are created. During the daytime, sperm and eggs are not created, but during the daytime they are. And also during the daytime, at nighttime, during when we are asleep, when we are sleeping, the growth hormone is secreted a lot. So basically, we grow larger or we grow taller when we are sleeping. So because growth hormone is only secreted during the sleep time. So you can understand why younger children need a lot of amount of sleep because the growth hormone need to be secreted. Their body need a they need to grow their physical body. As very young children, like newborns before 2 years old, their body is growing so fast. A large amount of growth hormone is secreted inside of their bodies. So that's why they need so many amounts of sleep, more than 12 hours of sleep every day to grow their body. And also, sleep is very important for our cognitive functioning, for our brain to normally work. So why we have a refreshed mind every morning when we get up? Because during sleep, the brain is doing a lot of work to clean the mind, to clean the brain, to refresh the mind, to refresh the brain. And sleep is very important for learning. It's very important for memory formation because for most of the information we have forgotten. During our life, we've forgotten almost like majority of the information is forgotten by us. We cannot remember that much amount of information, but we still remember some part of information. We know something and we can remember them. So that's why we can remember them, because the memory is formed during sleep. So every day we get a lot of information, we learn a lot of things, and we go to sleep. And during sleep, some kind of memory is created. So those information is permanently stored in our mind. So that's why we need another reason for why we need sleep. Without sleep, we cannot remember anything. I mean, like we cannot really form the long-term memory for a lot of information. So as students, sleep is very important for students and for everybody who needs to learn a lot of new things, because during sleep, we can only form the memory for those knowledge. And also, sleep is very important for have a high level of attention. So with enough sleep, we can get concentrated. Our brain can get concentrated with enough sleep. If there is not enough amount of sleep, when we get up, we cannot really get focused. We cannot really get concentrated because the mind has not been refreshed yet. And also, enough amount of sleep help us to have a lot of creative thinking. We can be creative because we have enough sleep. Also, sleep is helpful for language learning and also important for the processing of emotional information. So you can see that sleep is very important for a lot of aspects no matter in our physical body or in our mind. And there is a video. You can open this link when you have time to watch a video. That video shows the importance of sleep on memory. So it shows the connection why enough sleep help us to form the memory. Okay, so far we have talked about what sleep is, and we have talked about the importance of sleep. And next we can talk about what exactly happens during sleep. So you know that for adults, we have like more than 7 hours of sleep every day. So what happens during that sleep? What happens to the brain? So the scientists have found that during sleep, the brain has a lot of stages. In different stages, the brain have different kinds of activities. The features or the characteristics of the brain activities are different in different stages of sleep. So the patterns of brain activities go through several stages. So far we know there are 5 in total. There are 5 stages during sleep. How we know that? Actually, the scientists analyze the brain waves during the people are sleeping. So because there are electrical activities going on inside our brain when the brain is thinking, when the brain is working, so that actually the brain is sending the brain waves into the environment all the time. So that's very interesting because we are alive. Animals are like creatures, or humans are not like stones. The stones don't send the waves outside the environment, but our brain is sending the brain waves to the environment all the time. So if we use the appropriate equipment, we can capture those brain waves. We can analyze those brain waves. So that's why we know there are different stages of sleep. We can see on the graph on the right, we can see there are different patterns of brain waves for different stages. For example, when people are awake, you can see this pattern. The brain waves are really intense, a lot of fluctuations in the brain waves because the level of consciousness, level of sensory awareness, level of activities, at levels of thinking are really high. So that's why when people are awake, the brain waves are really intense. And also there are different stages of sleep. So all these stages are sleep actually. You can see there the patterns of these brain waves are quite different. So one thing that we need to introduce first is that there is one stage out of five stages is called the rapid eye movement stage. That is not movement. That is movement. Because there's a rapid eye movement stage, or it's called REM. So in this stage, the eyeballs of that person are moving quickly or rapidly. So their eyes are closed. The eyelids are closed, but the eyeballs are moving quickly. So that looks very, I don't know, looks a little bit scary, but it happens. And the brainwaves during REM sleep look very similar to the brainwaves during wakefulness. So you can see this is REM stage. This is awakeness. So the brainwaves here are like that, and the brainwaves for REM stage are like this. So you can see that there are a lot of so many changes in the brainwaves, very tight, very intense. So that is called REM stage. And there are other four stages that are the non-REM sleep. It means that in those four stages, there's no rapid eye movement. The eyeballs are not moving during those stages. So the first non-REM stage, or is called stage 1 sleep, is the first stage when people are sleeping. So that's the transitional phase between wakefulness and sleep. When people just get fall asleep, they go to stage 1 sleep. So that's why this stage is like a bridge between being awake and being asleep. So during this stage, the breathing, the rates of breathing and the rates of heartbeat slow down because people are falling asleep and the levels of physical activities are getting lower and lower. So that's why people are breathing slower and the heartbeat is slower. The muscle tension and body temperature also decrease. So that people need a rest. And then they go to stage 2 sleep. That is also a non-REM stage. So in stage 2, the relaxation is very deep because people are so ready to get relaxed. The body is so ready to get relaxed. So in stage 2 sleep, that's when the real relaxation happens. So in stage 1 sleep, it's just a transitional stage. If people only have the stage 1 sleep during their entire sleep, they cannot get relaxed well. But if they go to the stage 2 sleep, they can relax well. So if we look at the brain waves, there is a very interesting phenomenon called sleep spinals occurring during that sleep. So you can see on the picture on the left, like it's a burst of higher frequency brain waves. So the frequency of brain waves are like slower. The brain waves are not that tight, but suddenly there is a very short period of high frequency brain waves. That's called a sleep spinals. That part is important for learning and memory. So that's when our brain is remembering or memorizing things, forming the memory for the information that we get in the daytime, and that's when the learning occurs. And also another phenomenon is called K complex. K complexes occur during the stage 2 sleep. So you can see on the right here, it's very strong wave, a very strong brain wave. It's called the K complex. That happens when people or the brain is responding to the environmental stimuli. So during sleep, the body is still like respond to the environment, still have responses, not totally not aware or unconscious, still conscious, a little bit conscious. Sometimes there's a change in the environmental in the environment, such as suddenly there is a sound, very loud sound, and the brain still has reactions. So that's when K complexes occur. And after stage 2 sleep, people go to stage 3 and stage 4. The sleep is very deep. The heart rate and the breathing are very slow, very slow. And the sleep rate is very deep. That's the deepest sleep that people can get, stage 3 and stage 4. So that's when people are not easily awakened. If you want to awake somebody who is in stage 3 and stage 4, that is not really easy. But if you want to awake a person who is in stage 1, that is so easy. If you touch that person suddenly awake, suddenly wake up. If that person is in stage 1, because that sleep is very shallow. But in stage 3 and 4, the sleep is very deep. It's really difficult to awaken that person. And then after stage 4, the body goes to the REM sleep. So the former 4 stages are the non-REM stage. So the 5th stage is REM stage. So very interesting that in this kind of the stage, the brain activities are relatively very high compared to other 4 stages. That's when the dreams occur. So dreams only occur in the REM stage. The brain is very active, even though the brain is sleeping. So that's very tricky. So the brain is sleeping, but the brain is very active. Dreams occur during that stage, but the muscles are paralyzed because people are having a deep sleep. Muscles cannot move, but dreams occur. Brain is very active. So that's why the REM sleep is called a paradoxical sleep, because the muscles are not moving, but the brain is moving all the time. So when people get sleep, they go to stage 1 and they go to stage 2 and go to stage 3, go to stage 4, and they go to REM. What happened after REM? They go to stage 2, 3, 4, REM, or they go back to stage 1, or even they go back to awakeness. So there is a cycle that lasts around for 90 minutes during sleep. There are a lot of cycles during sleep. So from stage 1 to REM, if you consider that as a one cycle, from stage 1 to REM, that one cycle is about 1 hour and 30 minutes. That is 90 minutes. And the brain will repeat that cycle again and again. For one night of sleep, about 7 hours and 30 minutes, the cycles may repeat for like 5 times. You can do that calculation. So if you the 90 minutes multiplied by 5, that is about 7 hours and 30 minutes. So you can see the graph on the right. You can see this person is awake at first, and they go to the stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and the brain stays in stage 4 and go back to stage 3 and go to the REM. So this is a period when people are in the REM stage. What happened after the REM stage? I go to stage 2 directly, go to stage 3 and 4, and stays in stage 4 for like a little amount of period, and then go to REM, and suddenly this person is awake for a very short period of time, and suddenly they go back to sleep, go back to stage 2, 3, and 4 here, and go to REM, and this time stays in REM stage for like a very long time, and go to the stage 2. But this time, the person does not go to stage 3 or 4. It go back to the REM. Stage 2, REM, stage 2, awake, and stage 2. You can see there are not a lot of time, not a lot amount of time that people are in the stage 4 or 3. Normally they are in stage 2 or REM. So stage 2 is for deep relaxation. Stage 3 and 4 is the really even deeper relaxation. So when people have a lot of time of stage 3 or sleep, stage 3 or stage 4 sleep, people will feel really refreshed when they get up. So stage 3 and stage 4 is mainly responsible for creating relaxation. Without enough amount of stage 3 and stage 4 sleep, people will not feel that they get enough sleep or they get enough relaxation after they get up. if there is a lot of amount of time that is in REM sleep, after the person gets up, the person will feel like, oh, last night is not resting. There are a lot of dreams going on. It's like, yeah, the experience of sleeping is terrible. And the next topic about sleep is that what if you do not have enough time? What to do? So how to deal with that? Well, it means that if there is some special occasion that you don't have enough time to go to sleep during one night, how to adjust that? Because if you don't go back to, if you do not have enough sleep for a very long time, you have a sleep debt. They're resulting a lot of like a mental problem, like a healthy problem. There is a book to recommend to you. So this book is called Sleep, the Myth of 8 Hours, The Power of Naps, and the New Plan to Recharge Your Body and Mind. So in this book, the suggestion is that it's okay to have a few hours of sleep during one night. But if you need to pay the debt. So there is for example, you need 8 hours of sleep normally, but on that night you only have 4 hours to sleep. So you have 4 hours, another 4 hours of sleep debt. You need to pay the debt back, which means that you need to have an extra 4 hours of sleep in another night, or in other 2 nights, or in other 3 nights. For example, on Monday you have only 4 hours of sleep, but you need 8 hours of sleep every night. On Tuesday night, you can have 2 more hours of sleep. For example, you can have 10 hours of sleep on Tuesday night. And on Wednesday night, you can still have like 10 hours of sleep, which is 2 hours extra compared to the normal state. And on the Thursday night, you can have a normal 8 hours of sleep. So you can see what I mean. Like if you own like some hours of sleep diet, you need to pay back. You need to sleep more in the later nights. So the suggestion in this book is that every week you need to have at least 35 hours of sleep in total. So 35 hours of sleep in total in 1 week, which is 7 days. So it means that every 7 days, you need to have at least 35 hours of sleep in total. You can calculate like how many hours you need per night on average. 35 divided by 7, that is 5. Yeah. So that is the suggestion in this book. So you can check online and buy this book, and or check out the book if there's this book in the library. And the next little topic about sleep is dream. So what is the function of sleep? What is function of dream? Why people have dreams during sleep? That's a very interesting question to answer. There are no really clear-cut answers to this question yet. So scientists are still studying why people have dreams in the night during sleep. But a lot of the scholars have some kind of understandings of why people have dreams during sleep. So Sigmund Freud, the father of modern psychology, or you can, yeah, you know it, you know him. So he, the founder of psychoanalysis. So actually, he used the dreams, analyze the clients' dreams to help clients to solve mental problems. He found that the dreams, the content of the dreams, actually reflect the unconsciousness of their clients, of his clients. Because in consciousness, a lot of things are suppressed, are hidden by the clients, by the patients. But we can only find those content, those information in the unconsciousness. But in unconsciousness, it's not easy to find when people are awake. So when people are sleeping, they have dreams. Because when people are sleeping, they do not have control. They do not have the high level of consciousness. So dreams happen. Dreams tell people what happened inside of the unconsciousness. So Sigmund Freud analyzed the dreams to find what's going on in their unconsciousness. So the problems can be solved. And also he found that there are two levels of contents of dreams. On the surface level, that's the manifest content of dreams. That's the actual content of the dream. For example, you meet somebody in a dream, and you do something with that person in a dream. That's the actual content. But there is also another layer of dream. That's the latent content. That's the hidden meaning of dream. So that has a meaning in those content. Those dreams do not occur totally randomly. Actually, those dreams have some kind of hidden meanings behind it. The hidden meaning of a dream is the content in the unconsciousness. The hidden meaning of a dream help us to know about what happened in the unconsciousness. So what is unconsciousness? The textbook doesn't really talk about that in detail, but so compared to consciousness, there is another area in the brain that we are not conscious of, we are not aware of. That is the area of unconsciousness. Sometimes we have some kind of beliefs or some kind of ideas unconsciously. We suddenly have those ideas, but we do not know of. That's inside of unconsciousness. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, we only have the consciousness in the frontal lobe. In frontal lobe, we do things, we make decisions, we voluntarily control our body, we use logic to analyze, we apply rules in some kind of games. In society, we behave properly. That's what happened in consciousness. But there is a very large area in our brain that is unconsciousness. We are not aware what happened there. There is a lot of things going on. Sometimes when people grow up, they have a lot of experiences, and those experiences gradually turn to problems. So the brain tries to suppress those experiences, suppress those memories. That part goes to the unconsciousness. They used to be in consciousness, and the people are painful. People are so painful about those experiences. They do not want those experiences. So their brain somehow suppress those experiences, suppress those memories. So those parts do not appear, do not just disappear. They go to unconsciousness. people are not aware of that part anymore. So people feel okay, people feel good. And for example, when people are young, they have a lot of traumatic experiences. They have some kind of miserable moments, and after that, they cannot deal with that kind of memory. So they are really painful when they recall this content. They do not want this this memory, and gradually they forget those memories. But those kind of memory is not really forgotten. They go to unconsciousness. People do not know those anymore. It appears that they are fine, but they are not really. And when they have grown up, they have a lot of behavioral and emotional problems because of those content in the unconsciousness, because of unconsciousness. But they cannot really get access to unconsciousness because their brain has locked those stuff in the unconsciousness already. They cannot find the key to get access to those parts. So sometimes dreams is like a bug. Dreams are like bugs, and they just come out of the unconsciousness, and people know that. People know, oh, there's a dream, and there's something going on in the dream. But the dream is highly distorted. So every dream is highly distorted. It's not the actual content is different, is totally different, maybe totally different from the real meaning of that dream. So Sigmund and Freud's job is to recover or find the hidden meaning of every dream to help clients to solve their mental or behavioral problems. So that's his understanding of why people have dreams. And another psychologist called Rosalind Cartwright believe that dreams simply reflect some important life events. So the fact is that the dream, actual content of the dream, actually have happened during the past 3 days. So most dreams, actually, the content of those dreams actually already happened during the past 3 days. So that means that we experienced something and we do not really remember because those things are not really important, or we remember those things and in the next 3 nights, in our dreams, those events repeat again. Those events occur again. So dreams are just a reflection of some life events. That's correct understanding. And another psychologist, Hobson, believes that there is something existing called a proto-consciousness. Dreams are actually a representation of the proto-consciousness. It's a virtual reality of that's a virtual reality that is useful during wakefulness. That's his understanding of what the dreams are. Okay, so let's go to another little topic about sleep. So sometimes people have the sleep problems and disorders. So very famous one, that is insomnia. So insomnia is the sleep disorder when people cannot people cannot fall asleep after they go to bed, or they wake up too early. So either long delays between the times that they go to bed and actually falling asleep, or they wake up during sleep and difficult getting back to sleep. For example, I go to bed on 12 a.m., but I cannot fall asleep until 4 a.m. So there is a 4-hour duration that I cannot fall asleep. That is not normal. That is insomnia. Another situation may be that I go to bed on 10, 12 a.m. I fall asleep quickly, but I suddenly get up at 3 a.m. I cannot go back to sleep. That is not a euro. That is also insomnia because I only have 3 hours sleep during the night. Actually, I need more than 7 hours, but I only sleep for 3 hours during that night. That is also insomnia. And also insomnia oftentimes is accompanied with anxiety. So when people have insomnia, when they cannot fall asleep, for example, they are anxious. They're worrying. They worry, oh, what happened next day? What happened? I still have a lot of work to do if I do not have enough time to rest or relax. Can I get focused next day? Can I work well? I'm so worried. And that kind of anxiety actually increase the activity level of the brain. So the brain is really aroused. It means that the level of activity of the brain is really high. You know, sleep is a process that the level of activities of the brain or the physical body getting lower and lower. So that's why people can fall asleep. If the level of activities are higher and higher, because people are so anxious, they get more insomnia. They cannot really fall asleep well. So insomnia creates anxiety. Anxiety creates the increased arousal in the brain, and that creates more insomnia. So that's the vicious cycle of insomnia. Another sleep problem is about sleepwalking. So sometimes during sleep, those patients still have a lot of complex behaviors, like those wakeful people do, such as walking during the night. And even there is, it's written in the textbook. It says that some people during sleep they drive a car. That's very scary, I think. And I know a person who has this disorder, sleepwalking. So she said that her grandma had that problem before, and her dad has had that problem before, and she had that problem so far for a very long time, for many years. She's like over 30 years old, and she had that problem when she was very young. So every night sleepwalk and doing a lot of things, and such as moving the pillow from the bedroom to the downstairs, such as drink water, such as even though there is one time that she went to another room, went to her roommate's room and asked her roommate, how many people are actually living here? That's what really happened. And her roommate was so scared. Her roommate is so scared. And yeah, so, but she didn't know that after that night. She didn't have the memory at all. But during the sleep, she walked to her roommate's room and asked her roommate, how many people are living here? And went back to her own room. And her roommate said that she's eyes are open. Her eyes are open when she was asking. So Her roommate thought that she was awake, but she was not. That's really interesting. Somebody's eyes are open, but that person is still sleeping. So that's the disorder of the sleepwalking. And another one is called a sleep apnea. Actually, the breathing stops during sleep. That's called a sleep apnea. So that's really common among the people who are overweighted or the people who snore a lot. It's like yeah, that's also scary to other people as well because you hear the snoring of that person and that person suddenly stop the sound of snoring for a few seconds because the brain stops. And another sleep problem is called narcolepsy. It's like the opposite of insomnia. So narcolepsy is the symptom that people suddenly fall asleep when they shouldn't. They cannot control that. So normally people can control when to sleep, when to not sleep. But people with narcolepsy, they just fall asleep at every occasions, at inappropriate times. So my grandpa had that problem before. So every time, every moment, there is a possibility that he just fall asleep. For example, when he was sitting on the couch and smoking, suddenly he fall asleep. And yeah, the cigarette just fall down to the sofa on the sofa on the surface of the couch or sofa. And oftentimes there were like a lot of holes on the surface of the couch burned by the cigarettes. Yeah, so there are other sleep problems as well, but right now we have introduced 4 of them. And if you are interested, you can read the textbook or read some other stuff to know more about the sleep problems. Okay, so we have talked about consciousness, we have talked about sleep, and topic is about sleep. So now, right now, another important content in this chapter is about substance use and its related disorders. So substance use simply just as the drug use or the taking some drugs and people have problems because of taking those drugs. So first, let's know about some key concepts related to substance use and substance use disorders. So there is a term that describes a collection of symptoms after people use those drugs. So it's called a substance use disorder. It's a compulsive pattern of drug use. What does that mean? It means that people have the really strong compulse to take drugs. It's like a compulsion. It's like a really, they have to take the drugs. They cannot control that part. And often it's related to dependence. So what is dependence? So let's know what is withdrawal first. So why they have the compulsion to take drugs? Because when they do not take the drugs, there are a lot of negative symptoms going on in their physical body. So that phenomenon is called withdrawal. So when they discontinue their drug use, they do not feel okay. They feel a lot of discomfort. For example, nicotine. So a lot of people smoke cigarettes. So why they need to smoke cigarettes? Because when they do not continue smoking cigarettes, they feel really sleepy, and they feel they are too tired. They cannot resist that feeling. They feel that they're too tired, they're too sleepy. They cannot get focused. They cannot work anymore. So they have to take another cigarette to continue their mental state. So that is the withdrawal symptom. So with the withdrawal symptom, so that people have the phenomenon called the dependence or physical dependence. So there are some changes in the bodily functions. If if they can discontinue the drug use, they have the experiences of withdrawal. That is a physical phenomenon, that is a biological phenomenon. That is called a physical dependence. That's when we say, oh, this person is physically dependent on that drug or substance. So this person is depending on this drug because this person has withdrawal symptoms if discontinue using that drug. So that is physical dependence. And also there is another type of dependence, that is psychological dependence. That is not biological. They just have the emotional need to take the drugs. They are stressful, they are really stressful where they are not using the drugs. So they need to calm down, they need to soothing their emotions. They feel not okay, they feel anxious, they feel angry, they feel sad when they are not using the drugs. So when they use the drug, after they use the drug, they calm down. They feel relaxed, they feel happy again. So yeah, so that is psychological dependence. So psychologically, emotionally, they depend on this drug. So physical dependence is another dependence. It's like the physical body, it has been changed. The biological mechanism of the physical body has been changed. Their physical body need to depending on this kind of drug. Without the drug, their physical body is not okay anymore. And also there's another phenomenon for why people need to take drugs when they have the substance use disorder. Because their body is tolerant to that kind of drug. It means that at the beginning, for example, they take 1 gram of marijuana, they get really high. So marijuana can make people feel really high, really excited, right? At the beginning, they just need 1 gram. They can get high. But later they found that if they want to get the same level of high, they need to take 2 grams. 1 gram is not enough anymore. And later they found that they need to take 3 or 4 or 5 grams to get same level of high as before when they took 1 gram to get the high. So that phenomenon is called tolerance. It means that to get the same level of effects, they need to take more and more and more doses. Yeah, they need to before they just need to get some like lower doses to get some kind of the effect, but later they need to get more doses to achieve the same level of the effects. That is called tolerance. So that's why people who are addicted to drugs, some kind of drug, they need to take more and more and more. Without taking that amount of level of drugs, they will have the withdrawal symptoms. They feel really not okay, so that they have physical dependence. So for nicotine or the cigarettes with nicotine, so nicotine is highly dependent. It means that people can get addicted to nicotine very easily and very strongly. So nicotine is highly dependent drug. But marijuana is not that highly physical dependent. It means that if you take a lot of marijuana, it's okay not to take it afterwards. But a lot of people have for those who frequently take marijuana, they have the psychological dependence. They may have the psychological dependence. They just want to calm down, or they just want to relieve their stress in life, so they decide to take marijuana. They have the emotional need, but they do not have a lot of physical dependence. So that's the some key knowledge about substance use or addiction to the drugs. And also there are different kinds of drugs or different kinds of the substance. There are like 3 main categories. You can see on the left, there's a graph that's showing different kinds of drugs on the left, and they're categorized in different categories. There are 3 main categories. One category is called a depressant. That's the drugs that can suppress the central nervous system. So the nervous system is depressed, is suppressed. So that's why this kind of drugs are called depressant. Can depress the lower the excitation of central nervous system, or lower the levels of the brain activities, because they are the agonists of a certain hormone, they are the agonists of certain neurotransmitters. They are the neurotransmitter is gamma aminobutyric acid, or it's called GABA, GABA. What GABA do is to calm down the brain, has a quieting effect on the brain. So actually GABA lower the brain activities in the nervous system. So the depressants are the agonists. Agonists are the drugs that simulate the gamma, that strengthen that effect. So gamma can calm down and quiet the brain. So the depressants also strengthen that quieting and calming down effect of gamma. So you can understand as like a much extra amount of GABA that depressants are. 2 very famous examples. One is the alcohol, the other is opium. So when people take a lot of alcohol, when we drink a lot of alcohol, there are decreases in reaction time and visual acuity. So they need a longer time to react to the changes in the environment. And there are low levels of alertness. So that's why people who have been drunk cannot drive the car. That's very dangerous, because they are not alertive. They have no sense of alertness. They cannot be aware of the potential danger in the environment. And also the behavior control is reduced. They do not have a lot of control in their behaviors. So some people may be very dangerous when they get drunk. And more severely, they may lose the consciousness. So they just fall asleep. They do not have any memory after they get drunk. Yeah, they have the difficulty to remember the events. So that's the potential effects of alcohol. And another category of drugs is the stimulants. On the contrary, stimulants can increase the level of the central nervous system. So depressants can actually decrease the level of neural activity. The stimulants, on the contrary, can increase the level of neural activity because they are agonists of dopamine. Dopamine is also a type of neurotransmitter. Dopamine is released when people feel happy, feel pleasure, get high, or people feel that they're rewarded, or they want to crave for something. So dopamine is associated or related to pleasure, happiness, and exciting stuff. So stimulants are agonists of dopamine. So the stimulants can be understood as like much extra amount of dopamine inside our brain. Three very famous examples: caffeine. So in the coffee, cocaine, and nicotine. Nicotine is inside of cigarettes, and caffeine is inside of coffee. So yeah, coffee is very common in our life. So I think we all know what the effect of caffeine is. Like help us to be very wakeful in the morning, to focus on things very well, to get very creative, very alive. Because caffeine is an agonist of dopamine. There are some potential symptoms of using those kind of stimulants, such as nausea. People may feel really want to vomit, high blood pressure, increased heart rate, and also sometimes people may have the feeling of anxiety. They may have the hallucinations and paranoia. So those are the negative symptoms of stimulants. Another category of drugs, a third category, is called hallucinogen. So those drugs are categorized under this category because they can result in hallucination. So hallucinations are phenomena that people have really severe alterations in their sensory and perceptual experiences. It means that, for example, people in hallucinations may see things that do not exist in reality. They may hear sounds that do not exist in reality. They can have some kind of feelings, or they can have some ideas that really bizarre, really not possible in reality. So those are the hallucinations. So some drugs have that kind of effect, can make people to have hallucinations, see things that they cannot see, they shouldn't see, hear things that they shouldn't hear. But the mechanisms of hallucinogens are different. They are categorized as in the same category just because they all create hallucinations. So in the textbook, there are two examples: the mescaline and LSD. These are two hallucinogens. They are the agonists of serotonin. And the PCP and the ketamine are the antagonists of a certain neurotransmitter. It's called NMDA glutamate receptor. So I do not really, I'm not really familiar with the mechanisms of these hallucinogens, but we need to know that there are different mechanisms of these hallucinogens for why they create hallucinations to people. And the picture on the right bottom corner is a picture that the people can see using those hallucinogens. You can see this is not reality at all. So these are the three categories of drugs or substance. So another part, let's talk about another state of consciousness. So in consciousness, there are different kinds of states of consciousness. There's a wakefulness, there's a sleep. Also, there is a state that people have hallucinations. Also, there are some other special states of consciousness. So in the textbook, there are a few, but in the video here, let's talk about one type, that is meditation. So some people may hear of that, or some people may involve in meditation before. So meditation is actually an act, is a kind of a behavior. So in that behavior, people can focus on a single target so that their awareness to that moment, awareness of the current moment can be increased. So why focusing on a single target? Because it helps the person to be more aware of the current moment. So the main characteristics of meditation is that the mind is very clear, is really refreshed, so that the mind can focus on one single target for a very long time. So in meditation, so it's often related to the exercises of the activities by Buddhist monks. So if you have been familiar with or know about what monks do, the Buddhists do every day, so they involving a lot of meditations. They just sit there and do not move and may focus on one thing for a very long time. For example, focusing on breathing. So in meditation, people can focus on a external stimuli in the environment, or they can focus on an internal stimuli, such as breathing, and focus on the pace of breathing. So the mind is clearer. So because people's minds are oftentimes influenced by the memory or by the imagination inside our brain, because our brain creates a lot of imaginations, because our brain has a very strong ability to simulate what might happen in the future. We can imagine, our brain can simulate the situations that has not happened before, has not happened yet. So oftentimes our mind is influenced by those imaginations or simulations, and oftentimes we have memories about the past. We can remember what's going on in the past. And oftentimes mind is influenced by those past memory. So oftentimes mind is focusing on those memory and those imagination, but the mind is not focusing on what is going on really in this current moment. So that oftentimes our mind is lacking that focus. So meditation actually is a practice that help us to focus on what is going on in the current moment. So, so the mind is less influenced by the imaginations in the brain, and also the past memory in the brain. So there's a study showing that the patterns of brain waves when people are in meditation shows that there's unique state of consciousness. So it means that the patterns of brain waves in meditation is different from the patterns of brain waves in normal state of consciousness. Because in normal state of consciousness, people are focused on different things, focusing on the current moment, for sure, focusing on the past memory, focusing on the imaginations. They're worrying, they're anxious about future, and they're sad about the past memory, and they cannot really solely focus on the present moment. There are some benefits about meditation. Meditation can help us to release the stress. Why people have a lot of stress? We will talk about this in detail later. But oftentimes, stress is coming from the imaginations of the future. So we oftentimes worrying about if something is not going right, if something is going wrong in the future, what do I do? So worrying, right? So that's when stress is showing up. So to reduce stress, we can focus on the current moment without imagining those stuff. So they help us to reduce the stress. And also meditation help us to improve the sleep quality, because sometimes people are so anxious, they cannot sleep well. Meditation can reduce anxiety level and other negative emotion, so that the sleep quality can be better. And also meditation help us to adjust the mood, treat the mood disorders, if people have some. So that is about meditation. This is all the stuff for this week to know about. And yeah, so sorry. So let's, and also have a recommendation of a certain app. So the question is like, if meditation is very good, but how to do meditation? There is an app that you can download on to your smartphone. That app is called Calm. So you can just go to www.calm.com. You can download that app. There are a lot of small programs in that app that help you to meditate, help you to focus on the current moment. And in this app, there are a lot of programs that are paid. There's a lot of paid content. However, there are some content, some programs are free. You can start a free trial, and if you want to buy some kind of little programs inside of that app, you can do that. So that's the recommendation. Okay, so that's all the stuff for this week for consciousness. And here is extra slide that shows all the key knowledge or key concepts you need to know for this week. So for example, you need to know what consciousness is. We talk about consciousness all the time during the lecture. And also we need to know what sleep is. And also we need to know the benefits or functions of sleep. And other concepts that include like wakefulness or circadian rhythm, REM sleep or non-REM sleep. So those are the different stages of sleep. And there's insomnia, that's the sleep disorder. And about the substance use, we need to know physical dependence, we need to know psychological dependence, we need to know withdrawal, we need to know tolerance, and we need to know there are three kinds of drugs: depressants, stimulants, and hallucinogen. Okay, so these are the important knowledge to know for this week. And thank you very much for watching this video. And after that, you can continue learning and finish the quiz. And see you next week. So next week is about the sensation and the perception. So read chapter 5, and there'll be another very interesting chapter. And see you next week.